On Wednesday, two Islamic extremists strode into the office of the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo and shot dead 12 people and injured 11 more. Shouting, "We have avenged the Prophet Muhammad." The attack appeared to be punishment for the journalist and cartoonist who'd lampooned Islam repeatedly over many years. Another policewoman and 4 people taken hostage on Friday at a kosher supermarket also lost their lives to a third Islamist terrorist before police and special forces shot them dead. Now, this sent shockwaves across the world, shockwaves of horror, shockwaves of fear. Individuals and organizations across the world rallied under the banner, "Je suis Charlie." But no major news outlets were prepared to adopt "I'm Spartacus" tactics by actually showing the cartoons that the attackers had found so offensive. The fear of reprisals seemed to outweigh wholehearted commitment to freedom of expression. Does freedom of speech give the right to offend? Douglas Murray from The Spectator, if you'd been a newspaper editor, would you have done this? Would you do this? Because surely it would be reckless, and you would be putting, as Stephen Pollard said this week, you would be putting the lives of your staff at huge risk.
Well, first of all, we have to remember what's going on here. This is an attempt, a very clear, very bloody attempt, to impose Islamic blasphemy law in France and across Europe. And it has to be stopped. That's why these men did it. That's why the journalists of Charlie Hebdo are dead. An attempt to impose Islamic blasphemy law in Paris. The problem is that unless you have an "I am Spartacus," as you say, tactic on it, it's not worth any one individual or any one, well, let's put it this way, no one publication doing it, because, after the Danish cartoons affair, Charlie Hebdo was the only paper in the world, really, that continued to say it is our right as secular French citizens to draw, lampoon, laugh at, write about whatever we want. We're free people in a free society. They were the only ones who held on to that, and obviously on Wednesday morning we know what happened as a result. So any one publication would, I think, undoubtedly put its staff at considerable risk. That's why I've suggested this week, repeated what Ayaan Hirsi Ali said after the Danish cartoons affair. We have to spread the risk around. The free press in the free world has to spread the risk around. Our freedoms hang on this. It cannot be left to a single individual or a single publication, a single satirical magazine, to hold the line for all of our freedoms.
Well, we'll hear more from some of the other members of the audience. I'm sure this is going to be a hot and heated, session. But Douglas Murray is absolutely correct. And what he's saying is that you've got to spread that risk around. Then the other question becomes is that where does, let's say, for example, a magazine publication or social media platform or whatever entity is thinking about publishing photos or cartoon pictures or whatever they are of any religious figure, whether it's Prophet Muhammad or Jesus or Buddha or, the Hindu gods or whatever they are, right? But they're specifically talking now about, the Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad or whatever. So the question becomes, are these institutions going to say that, what? Okay, we have a First Amendment right, we have freedom of speech, but the question they've got to do is, like Douglas Murray brought up, is it worth the life of, somebody that you employ or somebody at a, newspaper outlet or wherever that is? Is it worth the life to publish these satirical cartoons or satirical pictures or photos, or even if they're not just photos, when you realize that you have radicalized people out there that are completely just, fundamentalist, Islamist, Muslimists out there that would be willing not only to take somebody else's life, but take their own life, basically because they think that they are doing something that is going to get them to heaven, that they're going to die a martyr, that they're doing something good, defending, the honor of somebody that they love and follow. So that's the question. That's the balance that these institutions have to have. And remember, you only need to have one instance, one person can do a tremendous amount of damage. Because what? What do you have? Police out there monitoring the entryways into your establishments? Is that the route that we're going to have to go? That every one of these places now you're going to have, I mean, some buildings, absolutely. You know what? You go through, police are there. They've got the barricades. They've got the monitors. They've got the, you know, the machinery that you walk through to make sure that you don't have anything untoward on you or whatever. If that's the way it is, maybe that's what people are going to have to do. But then what happens when you leave that institution? You're on your way home, you're on a car, on a bus, or whatever that is. These fundamentalists, these, terrorists, they are not going to stop. And so the question now becomes that where is that, what is going to happen to freedom of expression, freedom of speech when people won't allow that? Anyways, let's see what the response is from some of the people that are coming from the other side.
Nadeem, I come to you because you are scowling.
Yeah, because I disagree with everything you said so far. Because
Everything?
Yeah, most of what you said. Because I stopped listening after a while because it just didn't make sense. When he talks about we should, the news Charlie Hebdo published whatever they wanted, that's rubbish. They were overtly racist towards Muslims. They were always lampooning Arabs and being overtly racist in most of their publications, and it smacks of hypocrisy because they were prepared, in the name of freedom of speech, to sack a journalist who wrote a column that they considered to be anti-Semitic. So how come there's a line there, but when it comes to Muslims, it doesn't matter, take it on the chin. Why are we treated differently from others?
Could I just answer that?
He was charged with a hate crime as well.
Sorry, it's really rich. There are 12 people dead.
Oh,
for
please,
asserting-
don't try to use their deaths.
No.
Just don't.
Please,
don't
I'm not-
try, because I just give you an example where they did. No, let me finish my point.
No.
The
You
clear
finish your point,
example
then I'll do
where they
mine.
don't care for freedom of speech.
Okay, on that example,
to believe in it more.
Douglas will address that example. If he doesn't, we'll make him. And then I'll come back to you and ask you another
A
question.
dozen people were killed, and they're now being smeared as racists, like this gentleman here. And I think that's intolerable.
No, I did
He
not.
clearly knows nothing about Charlie Hebdo.
I just gave you an
nothing
example.
about France, nothing about French traditions of free speech. Charlie Hebdo is a left-wing, anti-racist publication. It has lampooned and does lampoon everybody. In recent years, it has taken particular delight in lampooning. Most of the attacks on Charlie Hebdo, the non-physical attacks, have been from the Catholic Church, repeated attempts to criminalize Charlie Hebdo for what it says about the Pope. Marine Le Pen, the far right-wing leader, is one of the main targets of their satire. You don't understand anything.
I just gave you an example.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Well, the gentleman there, Raza, from the Muslim Affairs Committee of the UK, was citing some type of an example where somebody was cited and was sacked or was fired because something that he did. So he's saying, where's the First Amendment, right there when you're talking about the same, company, Charlie Hebdo, that, sacked this guy. And, Doug, and then he also said something, else, in terms of that this is a far right publication or whatever. Well, Douglas just went right after him, absolutely with the facts that Charlie Hebdo is anything but far right. It is extremely far left. It is extremely, anti, everything that they anti-government, anti-religion. They're secular, to the core. And he's right in saying that the butt of many of their jokes, many of their writings, articles, photographs, caricatures, pictures, whatever you want to call it, have gone, after the Pope, have gone after Jewish people, have gone after, politicians. And like they said, they've gone after Marine Le Pen, who is completely, one of the far right-wing ideologues, in France. And then the free speech that the French basically, adhere to, very similar to the First Amendment free speech laws that we cherish in the United States here. So that gentleman, I don't know what he was trying to bring around and try to example, but it just didn't, I don't even know what he was trying to do with that example, other than basically, well, Charlie Hebdo, they want First Amendment here, but then they sacked somebody who was saying something and they didn't like what their own writer was saying. I'm really not sure, but Douglas Murray, once again, velvet glove, coming down like a sledgehammer, with the truth. Let's go and hear some more.
After
Very
we're
clear
going to
example.
spread the love, okay, as it were. Raza, I mean, Douglas touches on this. France has a long, some would say fantastic, certainly very proud tradition of vulgar and rude and anti-religious cartoons. Isn't it a cultural imposition for a minority to seek to change that?
Muslims are
Answer
being...
that question.
In France, in 2006, a rapper was prosecuted for saying, "I want to urinate on Napoleon." So where's this, in believing in
let
a
me
person,
explain.
we can offend whoever we want? It's rubbish. Muslims are being asked to believe in freedom of speech more than others are, because in France they're prepared to prosecute an individual on that basis. They've banned comedians that they consider to be anti-Semitic. Now I'm saying it's right, if someone's being anti-Semitic, stop them. But when we're saying someone is being Islamophobic and anti-Muslim, we're saying we'll take you on the chin. Why are we treated differently?
If it's unacceptable, as many people feel it is, many people find it deeply offensive to see cartoons of the Muslim prophet Muhammad, is there any way in which it is acceptable to poke fun at Islam?
If you want to poke fun, no one really cares. But the thing is, this isn't about poking
We're
fun.
not talking about
they clearly do
cartoons.
care,
Is there
don't
any
they?
way?
Well, no, hang on, no, this wasn't about poking fun. This case is being painted as a freedom of speech issue, and it's clearly linked to the war on terror. If you
for
look at
goodness
the cartoon, the killers,
For
what they say,
goodness
we're part of Al-Qaeda. It wasn't a cartoon that riled them up. It was foreign policy and a war on terror.
Why do you...
Let me take it to Majid Nawaz. Majid, of course, you tweeted
war on terror.
you tweeted one of the Jesus and Mo cartoons. Most people would say it was relatively innocuous. It was a divine figure saying hello to a prophet, and a prophet saying hello back again. Basically, one of the other cartoons was slightly more
Slightly less innocuous.
Yeah, less innocuous. That's the word. That's the phrase I'm looking for. You had death threats. Answer Raza Nadim's point.
Well, first of all, I just want to make it clear that not all Muslims define offence in the same way. Not all Muslims take offence at the same things in the same way. Muslims are not homogenous, and I don't claim to speak on behalf of Muslims, but I think likewise, nor should anybody else. So when somebody comes on this show and says, well, Muslims find that offensive, I think what they really mean is, I find that offensive because I'm very insecure in my own belief about God. The second point I'd like to make is that there is no right, yes, there is a right to be offended. There certainly is no right to tell others or insist that others do not offend you. They are two very different things. Everyone is free to take offence at anything. I mean, people could take offence at my dress sense. But what they cannot do is insist that I dress in a way that doesn't offend them. They are two very different things, and that's important when discussing cartoons. The second thing to distinguish is that every idea is open to scrutiny. No idea, whether it's a philosophy or a religion, is immune or can be or should be immune from scrutiny. That's different from hate speech.
But would there not have been a
Even
very
France
different
has been that
attitude?
principle.
I'll come
Yeah.
to would there not have been a very different attitude to, for example, as there was anti-Semitic cartoons?
Well,
What's the
they
difference?
fired someone.
That's why I'm that's why I'm
Right.
drawing this distinction, because first of all, Jews are a race, and anti-Semitism is stigmatizing a people. I've often said no idea is above scrutiny, and no people are beneath dignity. And if these were racist cartoons, then there's a legitimate conversation to be had about racism. The reason that I said I wasn't offended at the cartoon that you've just highlighted, it was a stick figure of a character called Jesus saying hello to a stick figure of a character called Mo. And the character called Mo said, "How you doing?" The reason I picked that particular cartoon to say I wasn't offended at that is because it left no other option for people that take the view that this gentleman's taken, except to say that's blasphemy. And what I suspect is that the issue at hand is, there's a separate debate about racial hate speech. The issue at hand is that many vocal, active, kind of communal,
qualified freedom of
self-identifying,
speech. That's what you're saying.
politicized Muslims will take an issue with blasphemy per se, and what they don't want is any depiction of the Prophet in any
Qualified
way.
Dan Hodges in a minute, but I must come back
That's
to you.
So in that video clip, Majid Nawaz makes a pretty compelling point. In other words, basically saying that if you're making a racist, hateful comment, that may be, that's something that we can discuss in terms of, free speech laws or whatever. And again, that's going to have to be codified into law, that what actually will constitute racist hate speech. So just like, for example, there are limitations on free speech. The best known example everybody uses ad nauseum is, yelling fire or yelling some type of something in a crowded place or crowded movie house that's going to cause confusion, mayhem, could cause injuries or death or those kind of things because people are scared. So you don't have the right to do something that's going to lead to incite violence, incite a crime, incite injury. You don't have anything to do that. Now, the same way can be said, do you have the right to use words or speech that are going to incite hate and racism? So those kind of things have to be talked about. Majid Nawaz says that there's a difference between that and literally just taking a photograph or putting up a photo or a caricature of a religious figure that has nothing to do with race whatsoever. So they can't say anything about racism. You could say that it's vulgar. You could say that it's not, the right way to depict something. But if there's no racism per se in there, then free speech has to be allowed in terms of allowing that person to, do or say what they want, as long as you're not going into that racist, hateful, rhetoric or whatever. And even that's a slippery slope. And like I said, that would have to be, people could say, well, we understand exactly, we know what anti-Semitism is. We know what Islamophobia is. We know what anti-Christianity is, anti-Judaism is, anti-Hindu, anti-Asian, whatever it is. We know. Well, the question you have to ask is, who are those we's? Who are the we's that says, we know what's bad speech, what's hateful speech, what's racist speech? Someone's got to go ahead and codify that so that everybody knows right out in the open. Anyways, let's get to more of the clip.
Freedom of
Was
speech.
that Jesus and Mo Cartier that he tweeted? Was that blasphemy?
I don't think it was blasphemy. But the thing is, again, like you said, people may have different views. But the point is, he's qualified freedom of speech, saying it's all good apart from racism. That's bad. Well, hang on, then you don't believe in absolute freedom of speech, do you? You're saying that it's all relative at the end of the day. Right? They ban someone. They actually fire someone and charge them with a hate crime. It's ridiculous.
Let's bring in Rose now, chaplain to the Speaker of the House.
So Reza right there, the person from the UK ministry, basically was sort of echoing the point that I was making, that if there's relativism there, there's not absolute free speech. There are some limitations to it, which I basically, just said in my little mantra a few minutes ago. Anyways, let's continue.
We live in a civilized society, and I think it is important that we safeguard freedom of speech. Of course, freedom of speech from time to time is going to mean that somebody may say something that I'm going to find offensive, but it does not mean that I go out and shoot them. It does not mean that. And I also think that we do need to be responsible in some of the things that we say. However, as I say to my children when they were growing up, you cannot legislate for someone else's behavior or what they say. You can only decide how you are going to respond in that situation.
Which is more important, the humour, getting the laughs, or thinking about the people who are deeply offended by this?
Well, I think those who are doing humour, they're only thinking, I'm going to get a laugh out of this.
Yeah, that's why they fired a journalist.
That's their particular thing.
No, can I come in and say,
Well, the lady there, who I believe is dressed, as a priest, makes a point as well, basically saying that freedom of speech needs to be there, and if there's something that I don't like or something that's just so distasteful to me, that doesn't mean that, she says, on my part, that you have to do, or I'm going to go and commit some type of violent act against the perpetrators who put that thing out there. But at the same time, she also said that people should have some type of common sense. And that's the whole thing. What are you doing it for? If a comedian is doing it, as she said, he's doing it for a laugh. He's trying to get a laugh. Now, comedy can be very cutting, can be very, a lot of satire. Okay. And sometimes that comedy or that satire or the way you portray it is very close to the truth, but with that funny twist, that satirical, spirits, that satirical flavor that makes it almost true in a way, but you're using comedy to get your point across. So again, the question becomes is, where is common sense going to be there? Do you really feel that what you're going to do is going to be that important that it's going to add to the dialogue? Or do you think it's going to detract from the dialogue? Or do you think that it could actually cause that dialogue to flare up into, into violence against the people that are, putting this stuff out there? Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I've been your host, Dr. Nasser. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow us. You know what to do. Take a look at our video links above and below. My final thought, as always, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.